Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and to what has inadvertently become an annual tradition, my Hermes conspiracy theories video. I did part 1 in 2020 and a second installment last year. If you haven't seen either of those videos, I will link them down below. This video will be slightly different in that I plan to revisit a couple of my older and more controversial theories, either to clarify or update you as to whether or not I think they still hold true today, and of course we'll get into some brand new conspiracy theories. And as I always say in every video, I call these conspiracy theories because they are just that, completely alleged, made up in my own head. I have zero inside information with Hermes. This is all for fun, so take everything that I say with a giant pinch of salt. I wanted to start off this video by revisiting my very first conspiracy theories video, where I said I think Hermes values loyalty over celebrity. And while I still think this is generally true, I do believe that things have changed even in the last 2 years since I posted that original conspiracy theories video. My new conspiracy theory is that I think that Hermes is engaging in what I'm calling unconventional organic influencer marketing. Now, we've all become used to luxury brands paying gifting and working with very large luxury influencers to promote their products. Initially, this was very controversial. It is especially popular with Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Fendi, and it turned off hardcore bag lovers because they felt that gifting these bags devalued them. However, the truth of the matter is that the gifting of bags and paying of influencers worked like a dream. For brands, it is so much cheaper and so much more effective than advertising in mainstream media that there is no end in sight. But Hermes has famously not gone down this route. But it is my belief that Hermes is engaging influencers in a much more crafty and strategic way, which is costing them next to nothing. When Hermes launched their beauty line, they engaged in pretty typical influencer marketing. They sent out their nail polishes and lipsticks to influencers. It was very effective, but for bags, it is a very different story, and this is where Hermes is on a planet by itself. So my theory is quite involved, but I will walk you through it. About 5 to 6 years ago, I started noticing influencers that I was familiar with starting to buy Hermes bags. The only reason that I noticed this is that I started to think about buying my first Hermes bag, so I was doing a lot of research around that time. There wasn't a lot of information out there, so the people that were into Hermes at that time really stand out in my mind. And that's actually how I discovered a few people that I still follow today. They were sometimes struggling and having a hard time getting the bags, so it's been really interesting for me to see how their relationship with the brand has evolved over the years. What I've noticed, many of these people became very real lovers of the brand, becoming really immersed in the brand and world of Hermes, which was evident in the types of items they began to unbox. Now, my theory really solidified with learning more about Michael Kost, also known as the VIP Whisperer, whose official title is the manager of external relations. Whereas I only used to see him in photos with celebrities, I started to see him pop up in photos with influencers as well. Interestingly, it wasn't necessarily influencers with 20 million followers. Some of them had 1 million plus followers, but some of them had less than 100,000. But what they all had in common was that they were all consumers and supporters of the brand for years. These pictures were showing up on influencers' pages, but also on his page as well. Now, granted, this is his personal Instagram, but he has such a powerful and public position at Hermes that I can't imagine that these pictures are not posted with the blessing of the higher ups at Hermes. So I started looking into his position at Hermes, and I discovered that Hermes has a podcast. Did you guys know that? I found this out sometime last year, and there's a podcast with Michael himself, which really solidified what I was already thinking was happening. In this podcast, he talks about his role working with VIPs, but he specifically states that it's not just celebrities, but also influential people. So he doesn't use the word influencers, but he says influential people. But he specifies that even the influential people are loyal customers. And he goes on to call Instagram and Twitter important tools. So in essence, I feel Hermes is collaborating with influencers in a non-monetary, unconventional way. So they've identified influencers who were organically already consumers and supporters of the brand, who are on their own providing millions of dollars of free marketing and advertising by posting unboxings, reviews, styling videos featuring their bags, that other companies were paying these very same influencers exorbitant amounts of money to promote their bags and other lifestyle items. Yet these same influencers were willing and had been already for years promoting Hermes ready-to-wear accessories, fine jewelry, homeware, shoes for free. I think what Hermes has figured out is that what these influencers want way more than a check from Hermes is access to the actual bags. And this is the genius of Hermes. They don't have to gift influencers bags. In fact, influencers are happy to pay Hermes for their bags as long as they can get them. And this is where the VIP whisperer comes into play, because appointments for celebrities and these so-called influential people are able to be booked directly through him and or his department, and those SAs are able to shop the entire store with their influential clients, which is very different from how FSH normally works, where SAs are assigned to one particular department and you would be ushered to another SA in order to receive help in a different department. So I'm sure we've all noticed our favorite influencers being able to magically get appointment after appointment at FSH when you've been unable to secure even one appointment, even though you're using your passport, your husband's, your twins, your support animal, and have been completely unsuccessful. So it's a win-win for both parties. The influencer wins because they get the bags that they've been coveting. They are happy to pay for them. And Hermes wins because these influencers that have very high engagement with their audiences are showcasing not just Hermes bags, but because I do believe that they are true lovers of the brand, are also showing their viewers items from many other métiers from the brand, which is of course what Hermes actually wants their viewers and followers to buy, and providing Hermes with millions of dollars of free influencer promotional marketing. And with the exception of beauty, which is so brand new for Hermes, the even bigger win is that Hermes gets to maintain the image that they are not paying and or gifting influencers to promote their products. So to summarize, it is true that Hermes is still not gifting their bags or paying influencers to promote their bags, but I think that there is a much more interesting quid pro quo relationship happening only at FSH for now. In the US, influencers seem to be on the same struggle bus with the rest of us. But as a follower of this brand, it will be interesting for me to see over time how this plays out and whether or not this idea will transfer to other markets outside of Paris. So this theory was a little convoluted, so I'll be really interested to hear what you think. So even though I don't normally talk about France, especially Paris, since the online scheduling system in France and the wish list system that exists in many countries in Europe is so different to how Hermes works in the US, Asia, Australia, Canada. So I always feel bad for people who live in those countries that comment on videos from someone who's explaining how they got a Birkin or Kelly from a wish list country. And don't get me wrong, I watch those videos too, but I watch them with the understanding that's a very different system. There's little to no pre-spending involved. So you really should not compare your experiences if you live in any of those aforementioned countries with anyone from France or countries that have a wish list system. And that's really why I don't talk about those countries, because their experiences are so different from what we experience here in the US. However, I am making an exception in this video. My last theory was about France, and so is this one. I conceived of this theory when I was recently at the Hermes boutique waiting for my SA, and I struck up a conversation with another customer who was also waiting for her SA essay. She was carrying a beautiful Birkin, which I complimented, and she told me that she got it at FSH, to which I said, wow, you're so lucky. I know how hard those appointments are to get. And she said that she tried for 2 weeks straight, no luck, went into the store, consistently tried to get a cancellation appointment with zero luck. And one of the days that she was there buying things, she struck up conversation with an essay about her misfortune with the online appointment system. He looked up her profile and essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, you should try one more time. I think you might have some luck. Of course, she tried again, and the next day she got an appointment. Her experience of an essay looking up her profile and strongly implying that she was almost guaranteed to get an appointment the next day really reminded me of a couple of YouTube videos where something very similar happened, and I wish I remembered whose videos these were, because I'd like to give credit where credit is due, but when I watched those videos, I really hadn't formulated an opinion about this yet, so I didn't really take note of those videos at the time. But if you're watching this and you've made a video about this happening to you, it is probably your video that I'm talking about. So the old trick was, if you weren't lucky enough to get an appointment online, was to essentially go into store, buy a couple of things, sweet talk the salesperson, who would then talk to the hostess, and you could squeeze in for a cancellation. Last year, I heard many of those stories, but it seems like recently I haven't heard any more stories like that. And that's because I think the essays in Paris got a major talking to, and they were forced to abide by the rules. If you don't have an online appointment, an exception will not be made for you. But I feel like the new thing to do, and this is my conspiracy theory, although the essays in Paris won't be able to get you a cancellation appointment anymore or squeeze you in, what I allegedly think that they can do now is to manually manipulate the system so that the next time you apply, you will get the appointment. I don't know what they're doing or how they're able to do this, and I think it's very clever with the Parisian essays, because in this way they don't get in trouble by their supervisors by trying to squeeze in clients, but also they get to help someone that they would really like to get a bag. Before I tell you my next conspiracy theory, I wanted to revisit one of my old ones, which was one of my most controversial, one that I've never heard before I said it, but I've since heard other people talking about it on other channels. I rarely get credited for this, but I guess that's the nature of YouTube. And that is when I said that more mature essays are better. And just to clarify a couple of things about that theory, maturity does not necessarily equal age, although they may be correlated. And what I mean by that is, when I say maturity, I mean maturity within the company, so that an essay in their mid to late 30s that started working at Hermes right out of college may be a senior essay with almost 2 decades of experience, whereas an essay in their late 40s, early 50s that has only worked with the brand for 4 to 5 years, just because they're older, I would not consider them senior. So I just wanted to clarify that from my previous video. The other thing that I wanted to clarify is that any essay, no matter how long they've been working at Hermes, can get you a quota bag. So I wasn't trying to imply that younger, newer essays could not secure you the bag. I was speaking more about not having to do the pre-spending that you hear many people talk about. So my entire point was that essays that are more senior with the company have long-standing clientele that purchase a lot regularly and big ticket items. So they're able to meet their sales targets very easily. They may be there long enough that they've inherited some extremely well-established clients from other sales associates that have retired. So sales associates like that really don't need you to spend on random knickknacks in order to meet their numbers every month. Whereas newer sales associates are just starting to establish their client base, of which you are one, and so they are very heavily dependent on you to meet their sales goals. So hopefully that makes sense. Any sales associate can get you a bag. I was specifically talking about getting quota bags with minimal to no pre-spending. I will say that I do think that this has changed for most people because of limited supply. Store managers are getting much more stringent about these things, even for very senior sales associates. So unless you're in a wish list country in Europe like the UK, or you're in France, The only people that are going to be exempt from the pre-spending are those people that get very lucky for whatever reason. I've talked about those people in my prior Hermes conspiracy theories videos, or people who have long-standing relationships with SAs, boutiques, store managers, etc. So hopefully I was able to clarify that theory a bit more, but my new conspiracy theory was inspired by a DM that I got. I get a lot of DMs about Hermes, which basically said, you always talk about your SA being so great and you have such a great relationship, yet you've never been offered a special order. To which I said, you are absolutely right, but I also have a theory about that. So I do think that an SA like mine is really good for getting regular quota bags without pre-spending. Now, the smaller the bag, the harder it will be to get. So my Birkin and Kellys in size 25 were a lot harder to get, but as you saw, my SA made it happen. And again, back to that previous theory, I believe that's because she has well-established clientele with deep pockets, and they are not asking her for black Birkin 30s with gold hardware. So she could easily offer a bag like that to a client like me, and it's not really that big of a deal. However, what those clients with deep pockets do expect are very unique bags in unicorn colors or special orders. So if you're buying Hermes furniture and 9-piece table settings, 20 to 30 pieces of ready to wear from each season, multiple diamond encrusted fine jewelry pieces every year, then I'm going to venture to guess that you could care less about basic Birkins and Kellys. What you do care about and expect are regular offers for special orders. And even your most senior SA is only able to offer special order slots to a limited number of clients every year. So the SAs with very well-established clients basically will have their special order slots filled up instantaneously. Whereas my theory is that those SAs that are still in the process of building their client base will have a lot more flexibility in who they offer special orders to. You as a client are an important part of building up that SA's client portfolio. Therefore, you may have as good of a chance of getting one of those special orders as any other client in that SA's repertoire. So hopefully that makes sense. And I'm not saying that I will never get a special order from my SA, but what I am saying is that would have to be something that I pursue rather than my SA just offering it. Because the reality is she would have to do some finagling with her other clients that have these expectations. I definitely would not turn down a special order, but I'm not at all pressed about being offered one because for almost 6 years, my SA has been able to get me the bags that I've requested. Even last year, during a worldwide shortage, she was able to get me 2 size 25 quota bags. So I see no reason to really push this special order issue. So I'm very curious to know what you guys think of that particular Hermes conspiracy theory. My final Hermes conspiracy theory is that it may be a long time before you start seeing Picotins and Evelyns on shelves at your Hermes boutiques again. And it's not because of the shortage. So this conspiracy theory came up when I was picking up something at my boutique, and yet again, the shelves were empty. And it seems like the bag shelves at my boutique have been empty for a solid 1.5 years now. And I asked my SA, how come I never see Picotins on the shelves anymore? I was specifically asking that because although they are fairly popular bags, they're also some of the easiest bags to make and require very little hardware. So even in a shortage, I'm surprised that I don't see those bags here and there being displayed as opposed to something like a Veru or a Cinetic, which are much more intricately constructed bags. Her response was, no, you're not going to see them because people have taken advantage. But if you do want one, the manager will take a look at your profile and see that you don't have any history of buying them, so you can for sure have one. And I found that so interesting. We did have a further conversation about it, but I didn't press her for too many details. But I will let you know what I made of that conversation. And that is that anything that you see on the shelves at Hermes, unless it has a for display only sign on it, can be sold. So it's not up to the discretion of the SA or the store manager. If you see it on the shelf, you want to buy it, you can buy it. And I think that was the big problem with the Picotin Picotons and the Evelyns. Essentially, when resellers could not get a hold of the Birkins and the Kellys that they wanted, they turned their sights to the Picotons and the Evelyns. Those bags have name recognition, the price points were good, and conceivably were able to buy multiples of these bags at a time where people couldn't travel or stores were difficult to access because they were by appointment only. And so the resale of Picotons and Evelyns went through the roof. So the only way of stopping the resale of those bags were just to take them off the shelf, which then allowed Hermes to vet who was buying them. So you best believe if you try to buy an Evelyn and the SA looks in your profile and sees that you've already bought another Evelyn and 2 Picotons this year, all of a sudden when you ask, sorry, none in stock. They're not selling it to you. I'm very curious to know if this is area specific, so let me know if you still occasionally see Picotons and Evelyns on display in your area. So let me know what you guys think of my conspiracy theories in this video. As always, I really enjoy talking to you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel. That would make my day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.